G'day folks, hope you're all doing well. We're heading towards the Sweden Major. In fact, I'm flying out in just a few hours from this video and really excited for my first cast in a very, very long time. At an RLCS LAN, of course, not obviously in RLCS, having cast every OCE season so far and this season also picking up APAC as well. And it's going to be awesome. I've got here a replay of Renegades versus BDS. I haven't seen it before, but it is an overtime from day 1 or day 2 of the Renegades boot camp. They flew out early, so did Ground Zero. And I wanted to talk about the two teams from OCE in particular and kind of how I'm gauging where they'll probably place, my thoughts on them. If you guys kind of didn't know what has been going on with OCE in the last, I guess, few years, we had a huge explosion early on and a 4th place with the famous Chiefs, with Kami, of course, being on that team. Kami, Drippe, and Torsos. A very monumental moment for the region. However, since then, results and performances haven't been so good, with Drippe leaving the region, caused a lot of instability. And outside of that, the obvious disadvantages of being much more remote than any other region. Smaller prize money, smaller salaries, smaller audience all around. On a much, much smaller scale than, of course, NA and EU. All challenges that have to be overcome and should be doable. Now, going into this, we've been looking at kind of OCE rebuilding. RLCS X was fantastic for every region, but especially OCE in terms of bringing up a lot of the younger talent. Seen a rise of some youngsters, and 2 of them will be there. Fever is considered maybe the best player right now in OCE, if not the best. He's in that top 3 alongside Torsos and Amphis, the other young player who came out in RLCS Season 9, Amphis, same time as Fever, and came second in his first ever RLCS season, and of course absolutely dominated RLCS Season X and was the best player of RLCS X. So we're starting to find some real mechanical players, some young guns that are hopefully going to drive OCE into that next phase. Now, coming into this major or throughout the season, I was kind of a little bit worried just because it's been 2 years since LANs and 2 years since the chance for boot camps, and I actually didn't expect that due to current times that a boot camp would be available for these teams. So not huge expectations. OCE has always relied on really improving and grinding through the boot camp times, and at least now I think there's a lot more of a chance for them to be doing quite well. Even still, I'm kind of still sitting in that 1-3, 2-3 Swiss area. I wouldn't hold out hope on them making a top 8, of course, but my kind of expectations are based on what bracket they get, either a 1-3 or a 2-3. Definitely doable. I think both teams will get at least 1 win, which is probably really good news for CJ, who still doesn't have his first ever series win at an RLCS LAN. He's had him at DreamHacks, but not at RLCS. And Express as well, very similar boat to CJ, has had some DreamHack wins with CJ, and unfortunately no RLCS LAN victories just yet. I do expect both of them will get their first at this event. Whether they can get a second one will be, I think, the most telling story. Now, coming out of OCE, Renegades, who we're looking at right now, were the strongest team in OCE. I think even though they've come out as 2nd seed and did take a loss, that was it was a loss to the number 3 team, and not too surprising. If you guys didn't know, Ground Zero almost took a loss to them, the same team, in the first event, which would have secured Renegades as that number 1 seed. But in the end, I do have to give it to Renegades in the OC region, but I think Ground Zero overall have the better mechanics, especially when you look at the likes of Amphis and Torsos being on that roster. Express wasn't known for his mechanics in recent times, but through the last year, through RLCSX, I think when you have two very mechanical teammates, you get really inspired a lot, and he's been working on his mechanics too. So Ground Zero definitely the highest mechanical team, and I think that's going to give them more of an advantage at the major. I think that's going to give them much more room to improve. It's easier to improve your play style and get used to the speed or the space or anything extra attack that comes out from overseas teams. It's harder to build straight mechanics from the get-go. So that's why I'm going to favor a little bit for Ground Zero International. They also had a bit of a longer boot camp. They went 2 or 3 days earlier on the 25th rather than the 28th. So that might also give Ground Zero a bit of an advantage there as well. And for those who don't know where these players lie as well, we can look at Ground Zero, I guess, to start with. Is you all know Torsos. He's been to every single RLCS. Known to have nerves, but I think now with the sheer level of experience, he actually knows really well how to deal with those nerves, and I actually back him to be quite the land boy. And that's going to be important as the most experienced player on that roster and experienced with dealing with nerves amongst a young player like Amphis. Amphis, if you guys didn't know, was the player for OCE for RLCS Season X. Had a drop-off and was very worrying for RLCS 21-22 because there was a good 5-6 month off-season period. In that time, Amphis finished his high school, so he finished school, got his certificate, and also had, he plays semi-professional football, soccer, and so that left him with a lot less time to grind the mechanics. So starting out this season, Ground Zero didn't come in with a lot of practice, didn't come in with a lot of tournament play, scrim time, anything like that coming in, and they looked really rough. They didn't look as good as they were in RLCSX, and Renegades certainly took advantage of it. However, Ground Zero got better and better as every event went on, and now even that I've been watching Amphis in particular and all of Ground Zero playing overseas, they're starting to look quite good now, and I think they're hitting their groove, their peak at the right time to be able to make this work. Because I had Ground Zero as a top 8 team by the end of RLCSX. They were so good. They were the best team we may have ever seen in OCE, especially since the Chiefs. And hopefully they're back at that same spot. Though I think everybody all around the world has shown significant improvement too. So not so easy nowadays to get even a top 8, which Torsos has had every single time but one that he went, at least a top 8. A lot more teams now, of course, as well. Over on Renegade, CJ, he's had a really good season too. I think in RLCSX he started to lose a little bit of motivation. But when Fever joined the team, that all seemed to come back in droves. He's been working hard, and he had a very phenomenal event number 1. But he's never been a consistent, solid performer. He's more of a chaos maker for the Renegades. And you'll see him do that. He'll cut a lot. He'll go for the demos out of blind spots. And he'll open up space, hopefully, for Fever, who mechanically is really good. He reminds me a lot of Chorset at his peak in Valencia, where Chorset was, and still is, very, very defensive as a player. But he used that to get in some extra space and then start outplaying a lot of people. And Fever is that default third man, despite being often the playmaker at the same time for this team. So it's a very interesting setup. And Kami has probably been the most consistent player in OCE for years now, and he started to really work on his mechanics in the off-season. And that's starting to come to fruition. I think he's still not looking at the top mechanically, but his decision-making is always good. His goaltending is excellent in OCE. Whether that'll hold up against some of the best attacks in the world is another question. But I think there is a really good synergy. I think Renegades work well as a team. They know each other so well now because they kind of have very defined roles, with CJ playing so aggressively, Fever playing quite defensively, and Kami kind of being that stopgap no matter where it needs to be. They kind of understand where each other are going to be at all times. So that's going to be their biggest strength. If they can play under the nerves, and look at that, there's a double tap to end off the game. So yeah, I'm pretty excited here for OCE. I'm excited for myself as well to be over there. I'm going to be cheering for all the minor regions, of course. I'm really excited for Mina as well. And Sam are looking really, really good. I'm going to see you all at the major. I'm going to be cheering for Ground Zero and the Renegades. And I hope to see you all there. Thank you.